Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Welcome back. Root Beer here, looking at question number 10 on the Fermat paper. In the diagram, the number line between -2 and 3 is divided into 10 equal parts. The integers -1, 0, 1, 2 are marked on the line. And are -2 and 3 as well. As are the numbers A, X, B, C, D, and E, in increasing order here. Okay. Which number best approximates the value of x squared? So we've got x positioned here, and it looks like our answers are A, B, C, D, or E. Okay. So, how do we figure out what happens to squares, and in terms of their relative position on the number line, what should we expect? So, first thing I notice as I copy down, we got -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. I'm just going to make note that x appears kind of close to -1, but between -1 and 0. Okay? So between -1 and 0. I'm going to leave off A, B, C, D, and E, and try and predict where x will be based on my knowledge. That way I don't sort of second guess myself or say, well, I ended up here, I'm kind of close to C or D, which one do I go for? I want to just see if I can work out where x should be. Okay? And you can play around with this. You could guess, well, x looks really close to -1, maybe it's -0.9. What happens when I square -0.9? Well, I get 0.81, which is something between 0 and 1, not quite as close to 1 as x is to -1, but still kind of close. And so you could play around with it a bit more. Maybe it's -0.8, in which case you're going to get 0.64, and you'll find that your numbers are between 0 and 1. In general, if you're looking at a number that is absolutely less than -1, and you square it, you're going to get a number that's bigger than 1. This is also true if you start with a number that's bigger than 1 and square it, it'll also become greater than 1. But if, like this particular x value, it lies between -1 and 0, or lies between 0 and 1, in both cases, you'll get an x squared that is between 0 and 1. And if you're familiar with numbers and the number line and this particular relationship or result, you don't actually have to do a whole lot in this one. I sort of was able to sight read this one. The only reason I didn't just say it right off the bat is because that's not really helpful for learning how to do these things. But understanding the relationship of what happens with squares and cubes and things like that. For example, if I took that same x and cubed it, what would happen? Well, it's between -1 and 0. When you cube things that are closer to, or that are close to 0, so between -1 and 0 or 1 and 0, cubing them, squaring them, fifth powering them gets them closer to 0 on either side. If you square things, fourth power things, it makes them positive. If you cube things, fifth power things, seventh power things, the sign stays the same. So our x starts negative. If I were to cube it, not what the question asks for, but if I were to cube it, I know I'd get closer to 0, but I'd still be negative. So I'd probably have something like, well, x squared is here, x cubed might be about here, and then x to the 4 might be here, x to the 5 might be here, and you just sort of spiral in. Just like if I start with a negative number that's bigger than 1, and I square it, that'll get bigger than 1. Probably a little bit bigger than that, actually. And if I cube it, it'll go negative again, but it'll be even bigger. And it'll bounce back and forth that way. Understanding how these numbers work can make it so the question becomes very, very quick to do. Now, if you don't know that sort of thing, and you just don't care for it, absolutely just guessing an x value and saying, well, it kind of looks like -0.9, so where did that end up? 0.81. Okay, that's fine. And I believe only C lies in this range. Yep, C is the only one between 0 and 1, so there's not really any ambiguity. The answer is going to end up being C, and that's what we'll circle or bubble in or anything like that. And we'll move right along to question number 11, the first question in part B, worth a little bit more, so we expect to have to do just a little bit more work. And we'll find out exactly how much work in the next video.